guys, and welcome back to the Maximilian channel. In today's clip I'm going to take you through my 5 tips to pass the FTMO challenge. Now if you haven't watched my previous video on how I passed the FTMO challenge, then I'll link that video up here, but for the sake of this video, here's a screenshot of my past challenge and all the stats that surrounded it. And just before we get started, I just wanted to say thanks for all of your video recommendations. I've got about 9 or 10 things that are going to be released over the coming weeks. One of the big things was Forex trading in tax, and also specifically the FTMO challenge and tax, and how do you pay tax and what tax do you pay. Obviously I can only talk on the UK basis, but that is a video that will be coming up and probably released next week, so keep your eye out for that one. So another interesting recommendation that came up in the spirit of FTMO, the FTMO challenge and passing the FTMO challenge, is some people suggested that I take on an FTMO challenge from start to finish and blog that both on Instagram and also YouTube vlogging, so as I can show you the progress from actually entering the challenge all the way through the challenge, the verification stage, until the point when you get registered. So if that is something that you'd find interesting, you think you want to see me do, then please just comment in the section below and say yes. And also, if you want, put the size of the account that you'd like to see me take on too. So that can be 10k, 25k, 50k or 100k. So put yes and the number and then I'll get to it. Cool, and just before we get started, as always, I'd love it if you could smash that like button if you are enjoying the content. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already, and also click on the alerts so you don't miss the next video I post, in this case the tax one. Cool, that's enough of that, let's get going. My 5 tips to pass the FTMO challenge. Tip number 1 is wait until you see a trade setup that you think is going to be ready within the next 2 to 6 hours before actually paying for and getting involved in that challenge. Now don't worry, because in my experience FTMO have never taken longer than 30 minutes to actually get my credentials across to me, and I think a maximum of like 2 hours. Now the problem is some people pay for the challenge because they're excited to do it, and when you've got it there and you've got that target to hit, you start taking subpar trades because you're too excited to hit that target. You end up making a backstep in most cases. By waiting until there's a valid setup there, you know that you've prevented yourself from any FOMO and taking trades and subpar trades all the time, which could actually go against you in your challenge. So in my experience, people tend to go in there because they've seen a massive movement in the market and think, God, I could have made money from that. They pay for the challenge, they get on the challenge, and then they start trading against it, even though it's not the right time to do it. So that's just it for tip number 1, is just wait. Don't pay too early for the challenge. Don't get too tempted to pay too early for the challenge. Wait until you see one or a few opportunities really coming up to scratch over the next sort of 3 to 4 hours, and then get in. Okay, so tip number 2, keep your risk consistent throughout the entire challenge. Now I know some people change it from 0.5% through to 3% to 5% sometimes, but in my opinion, you've only got a daily drawdown of 5%, and that's unrealized P&L as well, and you've only got 10% of the entire account. Now when you're chopping and changing around, you've got no consistency on there, and you don't really know that over the course of 10 trades that you would make back certain amounts of money and whatnot, and by changing your risk around, it just isn't conducive to actually passing the challenge, in my opinion. My advice and how I do it is always just taking 1% per trade. Obviously with the 10% drawdown on the entire account, it means that you'd have to get 10 wrong on the chop, obviously not in the same day because you'd fail the challenge, but over the course of the challenge over 30 days, you'd have to get 10 wrong back to back to back to back to actually fail the challenge. And even for an amateur trader, that's pretty unlikely. Now it also keeps things consistent, so that you know whatever trade you take, you're only ever going to lose 1%. So it doesn't matter how big or how garish or how risky the trade is, you know you're only ever subject to 1% loss. And if you're being sensible and doing it with a minimum of 3 to 1 risk reward on each of those trades, you know that it would only take 1 win to wipe out 3 losses, which is a great way to look at it, and it makes it even harder for you to actually lose the challenge. Now I know it's tempting to do 2% risk or 3% risk, but it really limits the amount of trades you can take in one day and the amount you could have open in one go as well, just in case you hit that daily loss limit, which I said is on the unrealized profit and loss, not just on what you cash out. Okay, so FTMO tip number 3 is don't trade with the target in mind. Now I know this is easier said than done. You're probably thinking, oh God, what an obvious one, and this is a load of crap, but the truth is that you will trade trying to hit that target. Now what happens is people go onto their MT4, they monitor through their MT4 account, and they see the profit and loss, and they can see there may be only 1,000 off hitting target or 500 quid off hitting target. They'll then hold that position to try and get to that point, and they could end up losing a bunch more in the process. When you're focusing on that target, you stay in trades for longer than you would normally, in most cases from what I've seen, especially from the amateur traders that take it on, and then you could end up losing the profit that you've already got there because you were just holding out for an extra 500 quid. So what you do in that situation, you take the profit at the point that you'd predicted the trade to get to. If it is at a profitable state where you are happy with it, then take it as you would as if you were trading the live account once you've actually passed the challenge. The one thing to always remember on this is that even if you're in profit by 1 penny or 1 cent or whatever, you will still get a free retake on the FTMO challenge, which means that you won't have to pay for it again. Now I've seen so many people get so close to the challenge, they lose a few grand from where they were, where they could have taken the position, they overtrade and try and chase those losses, they end up in a loss and then end up losing their money for the challenge. It makes no sense. So your first target should always be just to be profitable on this challenge, just so as you can get a free retake if worst case scenario hits. So that is tip number 3 for the FTMO challenge. Don't trade with the target in mind, and just trade to be profitable so as you could at worst case get a free retake. Now I have done a separate video which I'll link here to a trading view tip, or how I monitor my trades and how I steer clear of looking on an MT4 or MT5 P&L to monitor my trades, and I look more on the trading view charts. So click on that and take a look at that and see if you can see what I'm saying. Okay, so FTMO tip number 4 is make sure you have traded on a live account for at least 3 months and shown that you can consistently hit a target of 8 to 10%. So many people take on this challenge having only made 2 or 3% a month, or maybe one month they get 15%, one month they get 1%. They then pay like £500 or £600 to take on the challenge, but they have no confidence that they're going to get anywhere close to the profit target. You need to make sure that you have a daily routine, one that you stick to, so as you know, Monday to Sunday, you know exactly what you're doing and that you've got a repeatable process that you take on time and time and time again. That is the only way you're going to be consistent, and the only way that you can go into the FTMO challenge less emotional and just treating it as a day-to-day trading exercise. Make sure you actually have a trading plan, knowing how you shortlist, how you enter, how you exit, when to exit. These are all the key things that sound stupid, but so many people take it on because they're blinded by the fact that you can get a 100k funded account and they're like, yeah, okay, I can do it. I've made some money now and again. You know, what are the chances? You know, I can go in there, I can maybe get lucky, maybe I'll make 20%, maybe I'll make 5%. There's no structure to it whatsoever. You're literally throwing money away if you aren't consistent before going into it. The whole point of this challenge is to assess whether you are consistent and whether you can make money. So if you haven't proven that to yourself before going into this challenge, even if by some miracle you passed it, you'd probably blow the account within a month anyway. And just a quick fun fact, FTMO, I think it was, at this point of filming it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they said that 92% of traders actually fail the challenge. That is 92%, that's 8% only pass. And this is testament to the fact that most people go in without a strategy. They go in trying to wing it, or they get too emotional on the target, or they get close to the target, lose a bit, all the stuff that we've spoken about. So make sure you have a consistent strategic approach as to how you're going to take on the challenge. And also, once you pass, people just see it as passing the challenges that they've made it. Well, they haven't, because the whole point of passing the challenge is to be able to replicate that month on month so as you can earn profits. If you don't have a consistent back-tested strategy, just do not bother. Go away, do your homework, save your money from the FTMO challenge, you know, put £600 into a live account and seeing if you can make the profits to be able to pay for the challenge. That's a good challenge in my opinion. That's how I did it. I had a £1,000 account, I made the profits so as I could pay for the FTMO challenge, and therefore the FTMO challenge was from trading profits essentially, but it proved that you could be consistent before doing it. So please make sure you are consistent before you enter the FTMO challenge. And just a quick note with that, people seem to think they pay for the FTMO challenge and it's not their money because they're trading with 100k, but your money is in there. If you pay for the highest package, it's something like $500 or £500 or €500 or whatever to take the top whack challenge for the 100k or the 80k or whatever it may be at the time. So it's the equivalent of you putting 600 in a live account. But the difference is, in order for you to lose 600 in a live account, if you had 1% risk, you'd have to lose 100 trades. In order for you to lose your £600 or £500 or whatever that you put into the FTMO challenge, you can only lose 10 if you do it at 1% risk. So they're actually only giving you 10% of that account to play with. So it's equivalent on a 100k account of only having a 10k account. But the reality is the money you invest is there, it's live. Although you're not trading with the 500 that you've put in, it's still something you will lose if you don't do it successfully. So it's no different from putting 500 into a live account. So my advice is, if you think you're going to do the FTMO challenge, look at the amount it will cost you to get into the particular challenge size that you want, put it into a live account and trade it. And if you can't get that to a point where it can go towards your FTMO challenge, then you aren't consistent and you shouldn't be doing the FTMO challenge in the first place. And you probably will save more money by not quite making a profit on a live account than you would by throwing £500 into the challenge and then losing that within a couple of weeks. And just as a quick FTMO tip 4.5 is make sure you understand all of the trading objectives before you go into it. So many people are brought into the fact, like people like me even, that they see people on YouTube and they're talking about it and it's all great and wonderful and whatever, but the reality is people don't look at what the actual objectives are and the parameters are that they need to trade by. The one that everybody gets wrong, it appears, is the daily drawdown limit. The daily drawdown limit is 5% of your FTMO account, yes, but it's the unrealized, like I said in the last bit as well. So even on that 100k account, you've got the 5% drawdown, which is 5k, but that 5k isn't what you just cash out. So let's say you've got 5 positions on, all at 2% risk. If your P&L at any point in the day goes below 5,000 in the red, you will fail that parameter. Even if all of those turn into profit and you end up cashing it out for a 20 grand profit, the fact that you actually hit it in the P&L when they were live running positions, went below the 5k mark, you failed the challenge. And for some reason, people don't look into these objectives and learn them properly. So that's tip 4.5. Go through, they've got the videos on there and you can even do it without being on the challenge. You know, you can go and see all the parameters. They've got things that you can read, they've got all the calculations, they've got videos that you can watch. So just do your homework before getting involved. Okay, so FTMO challenge tip number 5 is just to trade microlots for the first 10 days. Now you will see that there's a trading day requirement of 10 days within that 30-day period. Now the problem is that if you're a good trader and you don't take trades every day and you wait for the good opportunities, it could be that you complete the challenge just in one trade. You could make a $10,000 profit on a 100k account or whatever. It's possible, or it could be across 2 or 3 trades. But the problem is that the trading days are counted from FTMO from each new day where you close a trade. So the problem is that even if you had 4, 5, 6, even if you had 10 trades open at once and you close them all in the same day, that would only class as one trading day. So this is one that can really screw people over, because if you don't take anything for the first, let's say 2 or 3 weeks, although that does link in back into tip number 1, which hopefully you would be starting the challenge when there is a trade opportunity that's almost there. Now, obviously it may not go ahead, but in most cases, hopefully it will if you know your strategy. But then if people do wait for those 2 weeks to be able to get the trade in, then the trouble is they haven't done their 10 trading days. And if you do it on day 21, for example, you aren't going to be able to chase your tail, and you'll actually fail the trading day, which means you won't get the free retake even if you hit the profit target. So my advice here is just do a 0.01 lot size, just get into a position, get out of position, whether it's for a penny profit or a penny loss. At least that class is then as your trading days, and you know that no matter what happens on the trades, and I know it will skew your profit percent figure and your average profit and your average loss and all that, but at least you know that you will have passed your trading day part, even if you don't take your big trades until the very end of the challenge. So that's tip number 5. Make sure you trade the micro lots for the first 10 days so you always pass that trading day challenge. Okay, and a bonus 6th tip for the FTMO challenge is just wait for a macro event to ride off the back of to try and get you through that challenge stage. So this may not apply to your first one because you'll be trying to do it sooner rather than later, so you'll be waiting a long time to find like a big economic shift or whatever. But especially if you've got 1 account or 2 accounts and you're looking for that additional account, it can be a great thing to wait for. If you see a good opportunity, then you can just jump in and get your challenge to try and ride the wave. For example, when oil went down to negative or near zero or whatever, it's clear that it wasn't going to stay there, at least not for the next 5 years. So everybody that got in there is an easy long to ride that wave. Now you can even do that through the challenge part, complete the challenge just on trading oil, and you probably could have actually got through the verification stage doing that as well. The other things, where we've had the coronavirus that completely shanked the stock market, you could have shorted a lot there, and also with the coronavirus vaccine as well, with the amount of positivity that drove the market, that was another good opportunity as soon as that came through in the news. You could have probably passed your challenge with 1 trade on 1 indice with a decent lot size. Now ultimately this may only get you through the challenge part, but just remember the verification stage is actually half the profit in double the time. So that's really an easy part. Now anybody that's even an amateur trader should be able to make 5% in 60 days. That's 2.5% a month basically, so that's a bad month for most people. So really what you're looking for, and the hardest part, is to get through that initial 10% challenge and that 10% profit target. And if you can do that based on a macro event where it can just shoot you through and get you through to the verification stage, even just conservative trading will get you that 5% in 60 days. Put simply, the challenge is the hardest part, the verification is fairly straightforward, but you can't lose your concentration at that point. But just bear that in mind, that once you get over that 10% mark, you're pretty much there. It's probably also worth noting that making 5% across 2 months, that doesn't mean making 2.5% in each of the months. You could break even or make a small loss in the first month and then make 7% the next month, for example. But if you aren't making 5% over the course of 2 months, on average, let's say, then you probably shouldn't be taking the challenge at all. Ultimately, just this message is to treat it like your own capital and remain patient. Like I said, your first target should just be to get into profit, to make sure that you can always get that free retake so you don't end up losing your money. Don't take unnecessary risks, and also don't try and chase that target number, and don't hold into trades just because you're trying to hit the target. If the trade is fulfilled, then just get out of it. You'd be better off being in profit and getting a free retake rather than blowing it in the hope of just holding out for an extra grand. So if you can carry out the challenge stage with all of the discipline that's necessary, the verification stage is going to be a walk in the park for you, providing that the markets aren't too drastically flat. Okay, so there we go guys. I hope that's brought you some value to do with the FTMO challenge and how to pass the FTMO challenge, and maybe some tips to think about. Now I can go through my individual strategies and whatnot of how I do it, but I'll do that in a separate video. These are just key things to think of and remember before you go into one, or if you're in one currently, things to think of whilst you're in it. Now in the next videos, as I mentioned at the start, I'll be going through tax and Forex trading, and specifically what tax would you pay on the FTMO or when you've completed the FTMO challenge. Obviously from a UK standpoint, but it does sort of roughly mirror in all countries. There is a lot of myths around it and most people avoid answering the question. Now of course I'm not an accountant, but I will give you my experience in this space. And guys, if you are enjoying that content, please just hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you hit those alerts so you'll be alerted when I post that tax video, because I know everybody loves it. As ever, put your comments in the comment section below. I'm always pleased to hear new feedback, and if not, grab me on Instagram @MattToMillion. But if I don't speak to you before, I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.